Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a world where peace isn't just, a distant aspiration, something
Mhm.
we wish for, but a tangible, conscious choice made every single day. A
Mm.
world where the default isn't the drumbeat of conflict, but the steady pulse of compassion and, well, mutual understanding.
It sounds almost utopian, doesn't it?
It really does. Something out of a dream. But what if the profound, maybe radical path to that world has always been right in front of us, just sort of obscured by all the societal noise and this deep collective self-deception?
Yeah.
Today, we're not just reading a text. We're really embarking on a challenging and deeply personal journey into Leo Tolstoy's powerful 1904 essay, Bethink Yourselves.
And this wasn't some abstract philosophical thing, right? Crafted in an ivory tower.
Exactly. No, this work was forged in the immediate raw agony of war, specifically the Russo-Japanese War.
Right.
Tolstoy, already this iconic literary figure, found himself just consumed by the senselessness of that conflict. And his response was this passionate, almost desperate call for nothing less than a radical shift in human consciousness.
A huge shift.
Our mission in this deep dive, then, is to wrestle with Tolstoy's impassioned plea, to meticulously extract his core ideas about building a truly peaceful world.
What did that actually mean to him?
Right. We want to understand what such a world actually means to him, why it matters with such urgency, and crucially, how he believed it could be achieved, starting not with the governments or grand treaties, but with you,
Mm-hmm.
with the individual.
Starting of this.
Tolstoy's words, penned over a century ago, reacting directly to a war he saw as utterly uncalled for, they just vibrate with this immediacy, this relevance that feels incredibly contemporary. It challenges us, I think, to re-examine our own complicity in the systems that perpetuate conflict.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here is how Bethink Yourselves. Despite being written way back in 1904, it just resonates so profoundly today.
It really does.
Tolstoy isn't merely lamenting one specific conflict. He's kind of performing a deep diagnosis of a much more universal problem, a malady that, well, continues to plague humanity.
So what's the core problem he identifies?
Well, he pinpoints it not just as war itself, but as what he calls the universal stupefaction and brutalization of men. That's the thing that actively allows these horrors to happen.
Stupefaction and brutalization, wow.
Yeah, and it forces us to confront this fundamental question. Is true, lasting peace just an impossible dream, a fanciful ideal? Or is the dreadful reality actually our current state of human behavior, this, collective, often unthinking acceptance of conflict as inevitable?
That's a heavy question.
It is. And for Tolstoy, a peaceful world is far more than just the absence of bombs and bullets or signing treaties. It's a profound internal and societal state, one achieved through what he terms true religious consciousness.
Okay, but religious consciousness can mean a lot of things. What did he mean specifically?
Right, and he's quick to clarify, it's not about adhering to specific dogmas or rituals or sectarian beliefs. Not at all.
So not organized religion, necessarily.
No. Rather, it's a universal understanding and embodiment of love and brotherhood that transcends all those superficial distinctions and divides.
Ah, okay. More fundamental.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Tolstoy offers a really stark warning. Without this profound shift in human understanding, without this internal revolution in action, humanity is, in his own words, inevitably rushing toward a precipice of self-destruction.
A precipice. He doesn't mince words.
No. The stakes, from his perspective, well, they couldn't be higher for the very continuation and flourishing of humanity as we envision it.
Okay, so left dive in right where Tolstoy plunges us, with his visceral, almost agonizing description of what he saw unfolding around him. He opens with lines that they hit you like a punch. He writes, "Again war, again sufferings, necessary to nobody, utterly uncalled for."
Uncalled for, that phrase is so powerful.
It is. It implies it's not just a tragedy, it's an avoidable one, a profound moral failure. And he continues, again fraud. Again, the universal stupefaction and brutalization of men. That word fraud. It's crucial, isn't it? He's immediately pointing a finger, not at some tragic error, but at intentional deception, a deliberate obscuring of truth.
Exactly. He's saying this isn't just happening by accident. There's manipulation involved.
And then he paints this truly disturbing picture. Men separated from each other by thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of such men, and he points out Buddhists whose laws forbid killing even animals, and Christians professing laws of brotherhood and love.
Right, the very people whose core beliefs should prevent this.
Yet they are like wild beasts on land and on sea, seeking out each other in order to kill, torture, and mutilate each other in the most cruel way. He describes it like something that should not, cannot be. One longs to believe that it is a dream and to awake from it.
But it's not a dream.
No. He says, but no, it is not a dream. It's this dreadful reality. It's this profound absurdity, this stark, almost unbearable hypocrisy of humanity that Tolstoy just cannot reconcile. He's showing us a world where our highest ideals are brutally contradicted by our most base actions.
And his central criticism isn't just aimed at, the uneducated masses who might be easily misled. He reserves his most scathing critique for what he calls these so-called enlightened men.
The intellectuals, the leaders.
Precisely. The very communicators of society. Scientists, diplomats, journalists, even spiritual leaders. These are the individuals, he argues, who know the cruelty, futility, and senselessness of war.
They understand it intellectually.
Yes. They're considered enlightened precisely because they possess this understanding. Many have even written eloquently, spoken passionately against war in the past. Yet, the moment conflict ignites, they pivot.
How so?
They suddenly preach war, support it, participate in it, and, perhaps most reprehensibly, without ever suffering its dangers themselves, they incite others to it, sending their unfortunate defrauded brothers to fight and die.
That's a profound betrayal.
It is. A betrayal of their own supposed wisdom and moral authority. And if we delve into the elaborate fraud that Tolstoy meticulously details, well, it's truly extensive. It's systematic.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, consider Tsar Nicholas II himself,
Wow.
who, with incredible irony, had publicly advocated for peace at the Hague Conference just a few years prior.
Right, the irony is thick there.
Incredibly. Yet he then declares war and invokes God's blessing on what Tolstoy starkly calls the most dreadful crime in the world.
Wow.
Similarly, the Japanese emperor makes grand parallel proclamations. Then you have the diplomats crafting circulars in refined French language, tirelessly proving, though Tolstoy acidly notes no one believes them, that war is somehow a rational solution after all these efforts to establish peaceful relations have supposedly failed.
Efforts which Tolstoy saw as.
Merely efforts to deceive other countries. He saw right through it.
And it doesn't stop with the diplomats, does it?
Not at all. Scientists, historians, philosophers, they all contribute their own layer to this deception, offering profound conclusions and interminable arguments about, the laws of the movement of nations or the supposed inferiority or superiority of the yellow and white races, or these inherent conflicts between Buddhism and Christianity.
Using intellectual frameworks to justify killing.
Exactly. Dressed up in academic authority. And then the journalists, perhaps the most direct purveyors of this fraud, Tolstoy says they report with impudent and transparent falsehoods without concealing their joy.
Joy. That's chilling.
It is. They compete to outdo each other in demonizing the enemy, glorifying their own side, extending this hatred not just to the immediate combatants, but to any nation that might be perceived as, unfriendly. This pervasive, multi-layered deception from the highest levels down to the daily news creates this powerful, dangerous narrative. It essentially brainwashes a populace into accepting violence.
What's truly unsettling, and maybe the most radical part of his critique here, is his assertion that in this environment, it's as if all the accumulated wisdom, the insights of thinkers like Voltaire, Kant, Spinoza, and especially Jesus' teachings of brotherhood and love, it's like they had never existed.
Just erased.
It's a shocking claim. How does he explain the sudden, ethical amnesia?
Well, for Tolstoy, the true horror isn't just the physical reality of war. It's what he calls the consciousness of the impotency of human reason.
The impotence of reason itself.
Yes. Our reason, that unique faculty that distinguishes us from animals, the thing we pride ourselves on, it suddenly becomes unnecessary and not only a useless but a pernicious addition.
Pernicious, harmful.
Harmful. It's as if reason, meant to guide us, becomes like a bridle that's fallen from a horse's head and is now tangled in its legs. Not just useless, but actively irritating and impeding any ethical movement.
So our capacity for ethical thought isn't just ignored, it's actively subverted, hijacked.
Exactly. Hijacked and rendered harmful when we collectively embrace the logic of war. It's almost like Tolstoy foresaw the cognitive biases, the groupthink we talk about today, how collective pressure can just override individual rationality, making us ignore our deepest moral convictions for the cause.
That makes sense. It feels very modern, actually.
It does. And this is a crucial distinction Tolstoy draws, helping us understand our modern moral predicament. He contrasts our situation with, say, ancient history. An ancient Greek or Roman or even a medieval Christian, perhaps ignorant of the full gospel and just following church orders, might fight with a clear conscience, maybe even take pride in it.
Their ethical framework was internally consistent, at least by their standards.
Right. But Tolstoy asks, how can a believing Christian, or even a skeptic, involuntarily permeated by the Christian ideals of human brotherhood and love? Ideals that have undeniably shaped so much of modern thought and morality. How can such a person genuinely take a gun or stand by a cannon and aim at a crowd of his fellow men, desiring to kill as many of them as possible?
It creates this massive internal conflict, doesn't it?
A huge dissonance. And Tolstoy explains that this profound inner conflict manifests as a guilty consciousness.
Yeah.
He vividly describes all the unnatural, feverish, hot-headed, insane excitement gripping society during wartime.
The speeches, the donations.
Exactly. The bombastic speeches, the hasty collections of donations, the solemn religious blessings of weapons, even the Red Cross efforts,
Yeah.
which he sees as just a superficial bandage on a self-inflicted wound.
So all that activity is actually a symptom.
A symptom of their recognition of the criminality of the work which is being done. It's a collective, frenzied attempt to stupefy and infuriate oneself, like a murderer who has begun to assassinate his victim cannot stop and needs to steel himself, to numb his conscience, to finish the job.
Wow. That's a powerful analogy.
And this psychological mechanism, this self-deception and frantic activity applies, as Tolstoy keenly observes, not just to the benighted, unlearned man, but also to the most educated man of the time. It shows how deeply ingrained this denial of reason can become under societal pressure.
The impulse is just to keep moving forward, avoid thinking too hard.
Precisely. Avoid critical reflection, no matter how wrong the direction feels, no matter how loud those inner doubts become.
Okay, we've seen Tolstoy lay bare this collective deception, the horrifying impotence of reason facing war. It leaves you feeling a bit hopeless, doesn't it? If the enlightened are compromised and reason itself is subverted, what hope is left?
It can feel that way. But Tolstoy does offer answers, though they are, as you said, radical. He argues the path to peace isn't through grand treaties or new weapons. He sees those as ultimately futile.
So what is the path then?
It's through a profoundly personal revolution, an internal transformation.
Back to the individual.
Exactly. And this is precisely where the title of his essay, Bethink Yourselves, comes in. It's that powerful translation of the Greek metanoia from Mark 1.15, often rendered as repent, but for Tolstoy it means something deeper.
What does it mean for him?
Let every man interrupt the work he has begun and ask himself, who am I? From whence have I appeared? And in what consists my destiny?
That's quite a question to interrupt your work with.
Isn't it? It's not just introspection. It's a demand for an existential pause, a call to remember our fundamental identity, strip away the layers of societal roles. He urges each person to recognize, before I am emperor, soldier, minister, or journalist, I am a man. I am a man, an organic being sent by the higher will into a universe to die. My destiny, my vocation, is that of being a workman of God, of fulfilling his work.
A workman of God, so connecting to a higher purpose beyond our job title or nationality.
Precisely. A primary, unbreakable connection to a universal moral law that exists beyond any temporary human assignment or political loyalty.
And what happens when someone actually does that? When they ask, who am I, in that deep way?
Well, what's compelling is the implication Tolstoy sees. He believes this moment of profound self-reflection naturally leads to an inescapable doubt about the utility, lawfulness, and reasonableness of his actions, especially when those actions involve violence or supporting the war machine.
So the emperor asks himself.
Right. He challenges an emperor to sincerely ask if ruling through violence, executions, and wars truly aligns with God's command to love my neighbor, serve him, and act towards him as I would wish others to act towards me.
Well, the soldier, the journalist.
Likewise, the soldier, the minister, the journalist, every single person must confront this fundamental moral contradiction in their own lives and work.
But is it really that simple? I mean, people would say that's incredibly naive, right? That individual refusal can't dismantle these huge systems.
Oh, absolutely. Tolstoy anticipates that criticism.
Yeah.
But he makes this incredibly bold claim. The moment the head of the state will cease to direct war, the soldier to fight, the minister to prepare means for war, the journalist to incite thereto, then, without any new institutions, there will of itself be destroyed that hopeless position.
Without new institutions, just by individuals stopping.
Yes. He's suggesting a peaceful world isn't built by external structures, new laws, international bodies. It's built by an internal, synchronized withdrawal of consent, a shift in individual conscience that just renders the machinery of war obsolete.
like draining the fuel from the system.
Exactly. A grassroots transformation fueled by human participation and, crucially, human non-participation.
That's a truly powerful and, yeah, challenging idea, a personal revolution radiating outward, which leads us into his deeper understanding of religion, right? Which you mentioned isn't about dogma.
Correct. He takes great pains to clarify it's not about dogma, church rituals, or sectarian beliefs. He states that the evil from which men of our time are suffering is produced by the fact that the majority live without that which alone affords a rational guidance for human activity without religion.
Rational guidance. What does he mean by that? How is religion rational guidance?
It's a critical distinction he's making between superficial faith and what he considers true religion. He emphasizes it's not that religion which consists in belief in dogmas, in the fulfillment of rites which afford a pleasant diversion, consolation, stimulant. No.
Okay, so what is it then?
It is that religion which establishes the relation of man to the all, to God, and therefore gives a general higher direction to all human activity, and without which people stand on the plane of animals and even lower than they.
Wow, so it's like a fundamental moral operating system for humanity.
That's a great way to put it. Decades before concepts like secular humanism or universal ethics became common, it's a call to strip away the ceremonial noise and reconnect with an innate rational empathy, a deeply practical, almost secular spirituality he believes is hardwired into everyone, regardless of their specific faith.
And without this internal moral compass.
Without it, he argues, men are effectively bereft of religion. They use their enormous power over the forces of nature. Think railways, electricity, steel in his time for their lowest and most animal propensities.
For lust, amusement, destruction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lusts for amusement, dissipation, and the destruction of each other. He compares them vividly to children to whom powder or explosive gas has been given as a plaything. Immense technological power, but utterly lacking the wisdom, the moral guidance to wield it responsibly.
That really makes you think about our own time, doesn't it? AI, advanced weapons, global communication. Are we using them for human flourishing or just more sophisticated self-destruction?
It's the perennial question, isn't it? Tolstoy asserts that for man, there is only one way of being free by uniting his will with the will of God. Otherwise, man remains the slave of the most unscrupulous and insolent among slaves, or else the servant of God.
A stark choice. Align with a higher moral law or be enslaved by passions and systems.
Yes. So this understanding of true religion is absolutely critical for building a peaceful world. It fundamentally reorients human purpose away from self-serving destruction towards universal service and ethical living.
Okay, so this true religion then leads to a universal principle, something like the golden rule maybe, but with more weight.
Exactly. He argues this true religion, this deep connection to the divine will, isn't some secret. It's known to the vast majority of all mankind and is latent in the consciousness of all men.
Latent, just waiting to be activated.
Right. And what it recognizes at its core is the law of life in love to men and in the service of them. He posits it as a natural, inherent understanding, just waiting to be embraced once we shed the layers of deception.
So why is this truth, if it's so universally present, so widely ignored, why isn't it obvious?
Well, Tolstoy identifies two primary deceptions that actively prevent this essential truth, this universal law of love and service, from becoming evident and obligatory in our daily lives.
Okay, what are they?
First, he points to the so-called scientists who mistakenly believe that religion in its truest sense is somehow outgrown. They spread this idea that men can live rationally and ethically without it, creating this dangerous vacuum where no higher moral framework is seen as necessary or even valid.
Undermining the need for that deeper guidance.
Precisely. Secondly, and maybe more insidiously, he criticizes those in power, governments, churches, powerful institutions, who sometimes consciously, often unconsciously, support crude superstitions presented as authentic Christianity.
Dogmas, sacraments, rites.
Yes. These, he argues, are pernicious, deeply harmful, because they actively conceal from men that central religious truth. They distract, mislead, obscure the simple, clear message that should be guiding us.
So how do we get back to that simple truth?
Tolstoy simplifies the path forward by emphasizing a simple, clear, and necessary truth. Love to God and to one's neighbor, and the fulfilling of the commandment of acting toward others as one wishes others to act toward oneself, and that in this lies all the law and the prophets.
That's it. That's the core.
That is, for him, the whole of practical religion. Not theoretical, but a universal, actionable principle. If truly adopted, it would make war and violence utterly incompatible with human conduct. It's the bedrock for a peaceful world, built not on complex theories, but on a straightforward, empathetic moral code demanding we recognize our shared humanity.
Okay, this all sounds so clear, doesn't it? Love your neighbor, act as you'd want others to act. If these truths are so universal, so latent within us, why do we keep falling into the same traps? Why does violence persist?
Ah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the Tolstoy really pulls back the curtain on the excuses, the psychological mechanisms at play. It's pretty sobering.
How does he explain it?
He uses this incredibly vivid analogy.
Yeah.
He says, men of our Christian world and of our time are like a man who, having missed the right turning, the further he goes, the more he becomes convinced that he's going the wrong way.
Okay, so you realize you're lost.
Right. Yet the greater his doubts, the quicker and the more desperately does he hurry on, consoling himself with the thought that he will arrive somewhere.
Just pushing forward blindly, hoping for the best, even when you know it's wrong. Wow.
It's this desperate forward momentum, this almost willful blindness, despite the gnawing inner doubts that he sees leading us to ruin. This path of denial, he argues, leads inevitably to increasing the means of violence of one against the other and of state against state.
And the consequences.
Dire. Multifaceted. There's the obvious financial ruin, constant armament, diverting huge resources from human needs to weapons. But maybe even worse is the profound moral degradation.
How so?
By killing in mutual wars the best physically developed men, humanity becomes more and more degenerate and morally depraved. We're not just wasting money, we're actively destroying our most capable individuals and eroding our collective ethical foundation at the same time.
That's a devastating assessment.
It is, and it begs the question, doesn't it, about individual accountability within a system that often demands violence. Tolstoy meticulously details the web of rationalizations spun by different people when asked why they participate in war. It reveals this profound, systematic, collective self-deception.
Can you walk us through some of those rationalizations, like the soldier?
Okay, let's take the soldier. Often a young man, torn from his family, ask him why he's preparing to kill strangers, and he's initially astonished. His conditioned response: he is a soldier, he has taken the oath, and it is his duty to fulfill the orders of his commanders.
Pure obedience.
Duty, right. Confront him with, "Thou shalt not kill," and he might resort to a higher but equally abstract justification for the king, for the Orthodox faith. Or, as one soldier told Tolstoy, simply the banner, elevating symbols above a direct moral command. It's about relinquishing individual moral agency to authority.
Okay, what about someone higher up, an officer?
The officer or general offers a more sophisticated institutional defense. He'll say he's a military man, and the military is indispensable for the defense of the fatherland, the Christian law against murder. For him, it's either disbelieved or conveniently interpreted vaguely, maybe applying only to individual acts, not state-sanctioned killing.
Ah, the classic loophole.
Exactly. He prioritizes the general question about the state or the fatherland over personal responsibility, his ultimate trump card. At the present moment, when the fatherland is in danger, one should act and not argue, shutting down moral deliberation for expediency.
The diplomats, the ones preparing the wars.
The diplomats, who, by their deceits, prepare wars, claim their ultimate goal is the establishment of peace between nations, achieved not by ideal, unrealizable theories, but by diplomatic action and readiness for war.
Peace through strength, essentially.
Kind of. They talk about the interests of Russia, the unscrupulousness of other powers, the balance of power, never about their own personal culpability or the moral cost. They operate within this game of nations where individual ethics are secondary.
And the journalists fanning the flames.
The journalist, inciting men to war, insists that wars are necessary and useful, especially the current one. They confirm this with misty patriotic phrases, talking about general interests of the nation, about the state, civilization, the white race, again, sidestepping individual moral choice behind a fog of grand, collective, often racialized narratives. Their job is to manufacture consent.
Even the Tsar has an excuse.
Even the Tsar, seemingly responsible for the whole thing, offers his own justification. He claims he cannot refrain from fulfilling that which is demanded of him by the whole nation, all for the welfare and glory of Russia, despite acknowledging war is evil. He presents himself as merely executing a collective will.
So everyone passes the buck, basically.
Essentially, yes. All these individuals, Ivan the soldier, Peter the officer, Nicholas the diplomat, the journalist, the Tsar, when asked why they participate in violence, loot, murder, despite knowing the law of love, will infallibly answer the same thing, that he is thus acting in the name of his fatherland or faith or oath or honor or civilization or the future welfare of the whole of mankind in general. of something abstract and indefinite.
Abstract and indefinite, that's key.
Crucially, and Tolstoy notes, these individuals are often so urgently occupied by these preparations that in their leisure time they can only rest, and have not time to occupy themselves with discussions about their life, regarding such discussions as idle.
Too busy to think morally.
It reveals a systematic avoidance of genuine moral reflection, a deliberate turning away from the individual conscience in favor of these abstract, collective justifications that provide a convenient shield for unthinkable actions. It's like a societal rationalization factory at work.
Wow. And Tolstoy shows how these systems conspire, leading to immense human cost, right? He gives that chilling example from the Polish War.
Yes, the Field Marshal Dibich casually telling an adjutant that at most there will be 10,000 who will perish on both sides, and that is all. Talking about lives like statistics.
But the reality was much worse.
Much worse, 60,000 lives lost. It's this casual, almost bureaucratic approach to human destruction that highlights the profound moral rot.
And he draws a parallel to the Russo-Japanese War happening then.
A direct, agonizing parallel, noting that for the Japanese to be expelled, not 10,000, but 50 and more thousands will be necessary, and for what he demands. Sacrificing unfortunate, defrauded Russian working men for other people's land, criminally seized, and for dark dealings by speculators.
An indictment of the elites benefiting while ordinary people pay the price.
Absolutely. And this is where his observations become particularly stark, revealing the absolute depths of institutionalized dehumanization.
Dehumanization.
How so? He quotes an admission from a paper of his time that chillingly stated, Russia's chief chance of success lies in the fact that it possesses inexhaustible human material.
Human material, like they're just resources.
Exactly. Strips away all humanity. He then equates these soldiers to crawling locusts, crossing rivers where the lower layers are drowned until from the bodies of the drowned is formed a bridge over which the upper ranks can pass.
That's a horrifying image.
Visceral. It shows how lives are reduced to expendable resources, cogs in a machine, by those in power. Not just physical brutalization, but conceptual, preparing minds for the sacrifice of millions.
And everyone's involved in perpetuating this.
He points out the perpetrators, stretching from the czar to the humblest journalist, all call for new insanities, new cruelties, for the increase of brutality and hatred of one's fellow men. It's a self-perpetuating cycle, a feedback loop of fear and aggression.
And religion gets twisted into this too.
That's perhaps the most insidious part. Christian pastors, he laments, continue to invite men to the greatest of crimes, committing sacrilege by praying God to help the work of war. He highlights the Buddhist scholar Soyen Shaku justifying killing to bring harmony, directly contradicting Buddha's command not to kill.
Twisting sacred texts to rationalize slaughter.
Yes, it underscores how deeply the darkness of violence can penetrate and twist even spiritual thought, turning compassion into justification for cruelty.
And the ultimate consequence.
Horrific suffering, as Tolstoy describes. Thousands of unfortunates groan and writhe in cruel sufferings and die in agony, asking why this fearful thing was done with them, while those who decree the war remain insulated. Meanwhile, scores of thousands of wives, fathers, mothers, children are bemoaning their breadwinners, uselessly destroyed.
It really forces us to question these institutions, doesn't it? If even moral and spiritual guides can be twisted like this, how do we build peace without fundamentally questioning their authority, their narratives, and our own participation?
That's exactly the question Tolstoy leaves us with.
Okay, we've really delved into the depths of the problem. The self-deception, the institutional cruelty, the brutalization, it can feel overwhelming, like we're caught in this inescapable current.
Like there's no way out.
Right. But Tolstoy, despite his scathing critique, he isn't without hope. He says pointedly that there is no practical issue out of this position if we keep relying on the old ways, on the same thinking that got us here.
So the traditional solutions won't work.
Exactly. He systematically dismisses them as futile, like applying a Band-Aid to a mortal wound. He rejects universal empires, papal power, holy alliances, political balance of power, even international tribunals.
Why tribunals? Don't we see those as a path to peace now?
He asks, quite logically, who would enforce their decisions on a sovereign nation with millions under arms? Good question, right?
Yeah, the enforcement problem.
He even dismisses disarmament as unrealistic. No one desires it or will begin it, trapped as nations are in suspicion. And the grim idea of inventing even more dreadful means of destruction, balloons with poison gas, better
I
bombs.
saw that only leading to an arms race.
Precisely. All states will just furnish themselves with similar weapons, leading to an endless, escalating, mutually assured destruction scenario. What strikes me is his complete rejection of all these top-down external fixes. He's saying the solution will never come from the structures that perpetuate the problem.
And that's the crucial pivot in his argument. It underscores his belief that the fundamental problem isn't external, it's internal.
Because external solutions fail how?
Because, as he says, whatever may be invented, all states will furnish themselves with similar weapons. It's an inescapable arms race. The cannon's flesh, he grimly observes, will just submit to the new horrors like they did the old ones. The core issue isn't the weapon, it's the human will to wield it.
So the crisis stems from misusing thought and speech.
Yes, using them not of serving as a guide for human activity, but of justifying any activity, however criminal it may be. This distortion of reason and language prevents real solutions. Therefore, the only certain means of man's salvation isn't external measures, but merely by that simple appeal to the consciousness of each separate man.
Back to the individual again, unequivocally.
Yes, the change must begin from within each person, because the root of the problem lies in a corrupted individual will and a stupefied consciousness.
But is individual choice really enough? Isn't it just a drop in the ocean against the state machine?
He anticipated that pushback. He argued that the power of individual conscientious objection, though seemingly small, is the very lever that can move the world. It's withdrawing the consent the war machine depends on.
Which brings us right back to bethink yourselves. Not just thinking, but radically returning to fundamental values, regrounding.
Yes. We revisited the essence of true religion earlier, and he emphasizes it again here. Love to God and to one's neighbor, and the fulfilling of the commandment of acting toward others as one wishes others to act toward oneself. This, he reminds us, is the only rational guidance for human activity.
Not complex theology, just a clear, universal, actionable moral compass. An ethical living guide.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how he applies this seemingly simple law, this practical religion, to the most urgent, chaotic situations. He directly addresses that common, desperate question, what is to be done now when war is commenced?
Oh, wait, what do you do then?
His answer for the individual is unwavering, deeply personal, uncompromising. The work of my life consists in fulfilling the will of him who sent me into this life. This will is known to me, that I should love my neighbor and serve him. Therefore, an individual operating from this deep conviction cannot act otherwise than as God demands of me, and that therefore I as a man can neither directly nor indirectly participate in war. I cannot, I do not wish to, and I will not.
Wow. A categorical refusal. Not political dissent, but moral duty, absolute non-cooperation.
Yes, and he confronts head-on the powerful argument against individual refusal being useless. The idea that the refusal of one man would only unnecessarily ruin his life without helping anyone.
The martyrdom argument, it seems futile.
It's understandable, but Tolstoy's counter is powerful and central. A religious man is guided by his destination of his life, by fulfilling God's will, not by presumed consequences or external advantage.
So you do it because it's right, not because you know the outcome.
Exactly. Such a person believes, from the fulfillment of the will of God, there can follow nothing but that which is good for me and for all men. This highlights the immense moral courage in true nonviolence, an act performed not for its perceived immediate outcome, but for its intrinsic righteousness, trusting in a higher law that ultimately benefits all.
It really asks us, are we willing to make that kind of profound personal commitment for peace, even when it's risky or the benefits aren't clear? What is the real power of acting from that conviction, even alone?
Heavy questions.
Indeed. And this leads to perhaps the most challenging idea. Love your enemies, he quotes from Teaching of the 12 Apostles. Love your enemies and you will have none. That's not just poetry, is it?
Not for Tolstoy. He sees it as a very clear and definite activity, a practical, actionable path with real-world consequences, a complete inversion of the logic of conflict.
So what does love your enemies mean practically for him?
He spells it out, contrasting it sharply with historical atrocities. It means, he explains, not to kill them for the purpose of having the right of poisoning them with opium, as did the English, not to kill them in order to seize their land, as was done by the French, the Russians, and the Germans.
Okay, so not exploiting or harming them.
Right. Not torturing or drowning them like happened to the Chinese. Instead, it means the opposite. Not to teach them under the name of Christianity absurd superstitions. Not to teach them the art of deceiving and killing others, but to teach them justice, unselfishness, compassion, love, and that not by words, but by the example of our own good life.
Radical empathy and ethical conduct as the main form of engagement. Wow.
And he argues the outcome would be revolutionary. If we did indeed love our enemies, if even now we began to love our enemies, the Japanese, we would have no enemy.
So transforming an enemy into a non-enemy is within our power through our own actions.
That's his radical claim. It's an act of profound self-mastery and moral leadership. And he highlights historical examples, people who bravely acted on this, facing persecution. The Doukhobors, Drojin, Olkovic in Russia, Nazarenes in Austria, Condottiere in France, Turvey in Holland.
Who are these people?
Individuals he calls the true heroes, imprisoned or exiled for having categorically refused to enter the ranks of murderers. They chose suffering over participating in violence.
Living testaments to nonviolence.
Exactly, demonstrating it's achievable, though at great personal cost. Their stories challenge us. What is true heroism? How does individual nonviolent resistance, one refusal at a time, contribute to creating a peaceful world? #outro.
And this is where Tolstoy's analysis takes this truly fascinating and actually profoundly hopeful turn. He ends his deep dive not with despair, but with this powerful vision, suggesting the true battle isn't with bombs or bullets or even diplomacy. No, the real conflict, the true great strife, is happening within each of us, within human consciousness itself. He's talking about a different kind of warfare, a silent revolution of the spirit that was, even then, beginning to kindle.
Indeed. He identifies the great strife of our time, not as the immediate Russo-Japanese conflict, nor even potential future wars between races, nor the literal battles fought with mines, bombs, bullets.
So what is it then?
Rather, it is that spiritual strife which without ceasing has gone on and is now going on between the enlightened consciousness of mankind now waiting for manifestation, and that darkness and that burden which surrounds and oppresses mankind.
That really begs the question,
Yeah.
how aware are we in our own lives of this inner spiritual battle? How much do we prioritize it over all the external noise?
He echoes Jesus' words, "I came to cast fire upon the earth, and how I wish that it were already kindled." Tolstoy believes this fire, this transformative flame of enlightened consciousness, is being kindled within humanity, even amidst war and deception.
So the potential for a truly peaceful world isn't some distant utopia, but a burgeoning reality, taking root in individual hearts and minds.
That's the hope he holds out, slowly but surely spreading.
That's a powerful note. And he grounds this awakening, this fire of conscience, not in grand pronouncements, but in the simplest people. He shares that poignant example of the simple seaman.
Right, the man on the lowest plane of society, writing to him with raw honesty. "Please write to me, whether it is agreeable to God or not, that our commanders compel us to kill. Is it true or not that God loves war?"
Such a gut-wrenching question, born from being forced to violate your deepest moral sense.
Exactly. And then he tells us of the reservist, forced to go to war, who makes this quiet, powerful, personal vow, "Through me, not one Japanese family shall be orphaned."
These aren't intellectuals debating abstract concepts. These are ordinary people grappling with the most profound moral questions amidst the war machine.
And Tolstoy emphasizes the immense power of this individual questioning, this internal struggle, as the very spark of transformation. This doubt about whether God wants us to kill, it is the spark of that fire which Christ brought to earth and which is beginning to blaze up.
A flame of moral awakening kindled in those who refuse to be brutalized, refuse to be stupefied. So what stands out to you from Tolstoy's impassioned plea? What does it mean for your daily life to bethink yourself and consciously choose peace, not just as an ideal, but as a practical, actionable commitment? Do we let the forces of stupefaction and brutalization check this fire of conscience, letting it be extinguished by fear and conformity?
Or do we actively spread and serve it, fanning the flames of individual moral awakening for a truly deeply peaceful world?
It's a question that, in Tolstoy's view, really defines our very humanity and maybe dictates the future path of our species.